Late 70s, Tokyo. A 24-year-old designer grabs a slice of pizza, and the missing edge, shaped like a mouth, sparks a character soon to become gaming's first mascot. From that one slice came Pac-Man, the first true gaming icon, a global phenomenon that turned arcades into pop culture and pulled in over $14 billion. But how did a simple yellow circle take over the world? Let's rewind. Development of what would become Pac-Man kicked off in early 1979 at Namco, which had picked up Atari's struggling Japanese division. The company president, Masaya Nakamura, put together this video game development group to mess around with NEC microcomputers and see what they could create. By 1979, Toru Iwatani had already made Namco's first arcade hit, GB, and its sequels, Bombi and QDQ. But he wanted something bigger. The problem? Japan's arcades were drowning in space shooters, Space Invaders, Astro Fighter, Galaxian, all about shooting and survival. Iwatani saw it. Arcades only appealed to guys. The games were violent, the vibes were sketchy, and families or couples wouldn't set foot inside. He wanted to change that. So, for his next project, Iwatani flipped the script. He wanted a fun, non-violent game that appealed to women and couples. His goal? Make arcades feel friendly, not sketchy. He figured everyone loves to eat, especially sweets, so he built a game around that idea. He called it Pac-Man, from Paku Paku Taberu, the Japanese sound for chomping. Iwatani pulled together a 9-person team. Everything they did focused on keeping things non-violent, simple to play, and super cute. Now, here's where the timing got really lucky. Namco was working on Galaxian at the same time, which had this revolutionary RGB color display that lets sprites use actual multiple colors instead of just slapping colored cellophane strips on the screen. Iwatani jumped all over this and loaded his game up with bright pastel colors, figuring that would help pull in more players. The whole power pellet idea, where eating one lets Pac-Man turn around and gobble up the ghosts, that came from Popeye cartoons where spinach gives him super strength. Some believe Iwatani also drew inspiration from an old Japanese tale about the Baku, a gentle creature said to protect children by eating their nightmares. Some believe he drew inspiration for the maze chase gameplay itself from Sega's Head-On from 1979. Now, the character design. This is where Iwatani's brilliance really shows. Yeah, the pizza story is partly true, but he admitted in an interview that he also based Pac-Man's shape on the Japanese character Kuchi, which means mouth. The 4 ghosts, Blinky, Inky, Pinky, and Clyde, got designed to be cute and colorful with those big expressive blue eyes. Iwatani had actually played around with ghost characters before in QDQ, so he knew what worked. He took inspiration from Casper the Friendly Ghost and this manga called Obake no Kutaro. Oh, and those fruit bonuses? Totally borrowed from slot machine graphics. Originally, Namco president Masaya Nakamura wanted all the ghosts to be the same red color, but Iwatani convinced everyone that different colors were crucial. Even better, he programmed each ghost with its own unique AI so the game wouldn't get stale or impossibly hard. The English ghost names actually describe their behavior. Shadow, Blinky, directly chases Pac-Man. Speedy, Pinky, tries to cut him off by moving ahead of his path. Bashful, Inky, bases his movement on both Pac-Man's and Blinky's positions, making him unpredictable. And Pokey, Clyde, alternates between chasing Pac-Man and wandering away at random. To break up all of that tension of constantly being hunted, Iwatani threw in these funny little cutscenes between levels showing Pac-Man and Blinky messing with each other. Location testing for Pac-Man started on May 22, 1980 in Shibuya, Tokyo. Now, at first, it was only moderately successful because Namco's own Galaxian was doing better, since male players were used to shooting stuff. But eventually, Pac-Man took off and became Japan's highest-grossing arcade game of 1980. This knocked Space Invaders off the top spot after 2 straight years. The Japanese market started shifting from space shooters toward character-driven action games. Now, seeing how well it was doing in Japan, Namco decided to take this thing international, especially to the United States. Now, before they could show it to American distributors, though, Namco America made some changes, like giving the ghosts English names. But the biggest change? The title. Executives were seriously worried that vandals would just change the P in Pac-Man to an F. Masaya Nakamura picked Pac-Man as the replacement since it sounded closer to the original Pac-Man anyway. Early American promo stuff even used a middle ground name called Snapper before they settled on Pac-Man. Now let's talk about the actual hardware for a second. The original arcade machine ran on one Z80A processor at 3.072 MHz, with 16 kilobytes of ROM and 3 kilobytes of static RAM. It had 2 custom chips handling the heavy lifting. The video output was analog component with composite sync. Sprites were always 16 by 16 pixels. The cabinet design itself became totally iconic. Bright yellow sides with bold artwork showing Pac-Man being chased by a ghost. The control panel? Just a single 4-way joystick. That's it. Super simple, which meant that anyone could jump in and play. Midway only made 5,000 units for the US at first before the game exploded. Within the first year, this thing was pulling in about $8.1 million per week. Some arcades literally bought entire rows of cabinets just to keep up. More than 100,000 units sold in those first 12 months, grossing over $1 billion in quarters. It crushed Asteroids to become America's best-selling arcade game, and even made more than Star Wars. By 1982, around 30 million Americans were playing it. A huge part of Pac-Man's success came from female players. Midway's Stan Jarocki called it the first commercial video game to attract large numbers of women. By 1982, women made up most of its players. And sales had tripled to 400,000 cabinets, pulling in around $6 billion in coins. Even Namco's founder, Masaya Nakamura, admitted a year later that he never thought it would be this big. Now, the gameplay had way more depth than you'd think. The maze had 240 dots worth 10 points each, plus 4 power pellets in the corners. When you ate a power pellet, the ghosts turned blue and you could gobble them up for escalating points. 200, 400, 800, then 1600. Bonus fruits showed up twice per level, ranging from 100 points for cherries to 5,000 for keys. The difficulty curve was perfectly balanced. As you progressed, ghosts got faster and power pellets lasted shorter times. By level 21, the power pellet effect was basically gone in seconds. The maze had 2 side tunnels where you could wrap to the other side, but ghosts slowed down going through them, giving you clutch escape routes. And then there's the famous kill screen at level 256. This was totally unintentional. An integer overflow made the right side of the maze turn into complete gibberish. But this glitch became legendary. By 1982, Pac-Man was everywhere. Merchandise sales hit over $1 billion in the US, but more on that later. So, after the big hype, the next step was obvious. Bring Pac-Man home. The most infamous port? That's got to be the 1982 Atari 2600 version designed by Todd Fry. This thing was widely criticized for how badly it represented the arcade original. The 2600 just couldn't handle proper sprite rendering, so ghosts would flicker in and out of existence. Now, despite being objectively terrible, it still sold over 7 million copies, making it the console's best-selling title. That's how powerful the Pac-Man brand was. People bought it anyway. Atari flooded the market with versions for basically every system. The Intellivision port maintained better graphics than the 2600 version. The VIC-20, Commodore 64, Apple II, TI-99 4A, ZX Spectrum, and Atari 8-bit computer versions each had their own quirks and limitations based on hardware. The Atari 5200 version in 1983 was considered a massive improvement over the 2600 disaster, with proper maze layout and smoother gameplay that actually resembled the arcade original. The Atari 8-bit computer version sold 42,500 copies between 1986 and 1990, while the Atari 5200 version moved 35,000 cartridges between 1986 and 1988. But the sequels, that's where things got really interesting. Ms. Pac-Man arrived in 1982 and became a phenomenon that rivaled the original. The character's gender changed to female in response to Pac-Man's massive popularity with women. Remember, Pac-Man was the first commercial video game to involve large numbers of women as players. Ms. Pac-Man featured 4 completely different mazes with varying dot counts. The mazes changed colors, keeping gameplay fresh. Moving bonus items bounced around the maze unpredictably instead of appearing in one spot. The ghosts had improved AI with more sophisticated movement patterns, making the game significantly harder. Ms. Pac-Man became one of the best-selling arcade games in North America, and many players consider it superior to the original. Ms. Pac-Man inspired its own line of remakes, including Ms. Pac-Man Maze Madness in 2000 and Ms. Pac-Man Quest for the Golden Maze. Super Pac-Man hit arcades in 1982 as Namco's official follow-up. The gameplay shifted dramatically. Locked gates blocked parts of the maze, requiring keys to open them. Super Pellets transformed Pac-Man into a giant who could smash through gates and eat ghosts without needing regular power pellets. The gates contained various foods like apples, donuts, and burgers that Pac-Man could eat for points. This added a strategic layer where players had to decide when to grab keys versus when to eat for points. Pac-Man Plus in 1982 added random maze elements and unpredictable ghost behavior. Sometimes eating a power pellet made ghosts invisible, or caused them to move faster instead of slower, turning the familiar formula into chaos. The 1983 Japan-exclusive Pac-N-Pal added a partner character named Miru, who would grab items like cards, dice, and fruit, bringing them to designated spots in the maze. Players could steal these items from Miru for bonus points, introducing competitive cooperative elements. In 1983, Junior Pac-Man took the familiar maze gameplay and blew it wide open. Literally. The levels were so large that they scrolled horizontally beyond the edge of the screen, making players chase ghosts and pellets across sprawling mazes instead of seeing it all at once. Baby Pac-Man in 1983 took the most bizarre turn, combining arcade maze gameplay with an actual physical pinball table mounted below the screen. When Baby Pac-Man dropped through the bottom of the maze, players would physically play pinball to earn power-ups, extra lives, and faster speed. Performance in the pinball section directly affected arcade difficulty, creating a unique hybrid experience. Now, only about 7,000 units were produced, making original Baby Pac-Man machines extremely rare and valuable to collectors today. Professor Pac-Man in 1984 was Midway's strangest attempt, a quiz game showing Pac-Man wearing a mortarboard and glasses. Players answered trivia questions before the time ran out. It flopped spectacularly and is now one of the rarest Pac-Man arcade machines, sought after by completionist collectors despite its terrible gameplay. Pac-Land in 1984 revolutionized the franchise as a side-scrolling platformer. Pac-Man ran, jumped, and dodged obstacles across colorful landscapes inspired by the Hanna-Barbera cartoon. The game featured 3-button controls for left, right, and jump. Players guided Pac-Man through neighborhoods, forests, and deserts to return a ferry to Fairyland. Pac-Land directly influenced later platformers and remained one of Iwatani's favorite games. The isometric Pac-Mania arrived in 1987, adding a jump button and 3D perspective that let Pac-Man leap over ghosts. 4 different mazes: Blocktown, Pac-Man's Park, Sandbox Land, and Jungly Steps each had unique layouts and visual themes. 2 new ghosts joined the classic 4, Funky, the green one, and Spunky, the gray one. In 1991, Pac-Attack mixed classic Pac-Man characters with Tetris-style falling block gameplay. Players rotated and stacked blocks and ghosts to complete lines. It came out in several versions across consoles and handhelds, featuring both a single-player puzzle mode and a competitive 2-player mode. Hello, Pac-Man from 1994, known internationally as Pac-Man 2: The New Adventures, shifted the series into a side-scrolling, story-driven adventure where players guided Pac-Man through puzzles and everyday challenges instead of traditional mazes. The following year, Pac in Time took the side-scrolling idea further, sending Pac-Man back in time and giving us a platform-style quest filled with obstacles, enemies, and pellets to collect on his way back home. Pac-Man World in 1999 brought the series fully into 3D on the original PlayStation. The game mixed classic maze-inspired stages with full 3D platforming, running, jumping, and even butt-bouncing enemies across 6 themed worlds. Players collected dots, fruit, and hidden letters spelling Pac-Man to reach 100% completion. The success led to 2 sequels, Pac-Man World 2 in 2002 and Pac-Man World 3 in 2005, each expanding the 3D platforming formula with larger levels, new abilities, and deeper worlds. Pac-Pix in 2005 for Nintendo DS used the touchscreen innovatively. Players drew Pac-Man with the stylus, and he'd come to life, moving in the direction his mouth faced. Drawing bigger Pac-Man allowed eating larger ghosts. Players could draw walls to guide him, or arrows to change his direction, creating a unique puzzle platformer hybrid. Pac-Man Championship Edition for Xbox 360 in 2007 was Iwatani's final project before leaving Namco. This reimagining featured neon visuals, continuously evolving mazes that expanded as players ate dots, strict time limits, and speed-focused gameplay rewarding quick decisions. The game received universal critical acclaim for modernizing the formula while respecting its roots. Championship Edition DX arrived in 2010, adding ghost trains, long chains of sleeping ghosts that would all wake simultaneously when Pac-Man got close, creating terrifying chase sequences. Bomb power-ups helped clear screens. Championship Edition 2 in 2016 featured even more elaborate maze transformations, with sections appearing and disappearing dynamically. Pac-Man 256 released in 2015 for mobile devices and later consoles, built around the infamous kill screen glitch. Players navigated an endless maze while the glitch pursued from behind, corrupting the playfield. Power-ups like lasers, tornadoes, and giant mode added variety. The game became popular for its endless runner approach to classic gameplay. Pac-Man 99 launched on Nintendo Switch in 2021 as a battle royale where 99 players competed simultaneously, eating ghosts and jammer Pac-Man to opponent screens as obstacles. The last player surviving won. This innovative competitive take proved that the formula still had surprises 40 years later. Mobile gaming brought new life in 2001 when Namco released Pac-Man for various Japanese mobile phones, one of the company's first mobile releases. By 2010, mobile phone ports had sold over 30 million paid downloads worldwide. Now, over the years, Pac-Man kept coming back in new collections so every generation could play. It started with Namco Museum Volume 1 in 1995, and then moved to consoles with Namco's Museum 64 in 1999, and kept going through the 2000s with releases like Battle Collection, DS Essentials, and Mega Mix. In arcades, Namco Classic Collection Volume 2 even added the updated versions of the classics. That same year, Microsoft brought Pac-Man to PC with Return of Arcade to show off Windows 95. And handheld players got their turn with the Pac-Man collection on Game Boy Advance in 2001, bundling Pac-Man, Pac-Mania, Pac-Attack, and Pac-Man Arrangement. Even decades later, the original Pac-Man showed up again on the NES Classic Edition, proving that it never left. When Pac-Man hit the world in the early 80s, it wasn't just a game, it was a cultural explosion. By 1982, Pac-Man was everywhere. Over 100 companies were making Pac-Man stuff, telephones, cereal, t-shirts. You could eat Pac-Man pasta for lunch, ride a Pac-Man bike to school, and wear Pac-Man pajamas to bed. All that yellow chomping face made over $1 billion in US merchandise sales in 1 year. Everyone wanted a piece of the craze. Ken Houston's guidebook Mastering Pac-Man sold over 1 million copies. And then came the Pac-Man cartoon by Hanna-Barbera, Saturday mornings on ABC, 1982 to 83. It was the #1 Saturday morning show in America that year. Music jumped in too. Pac-Man Fever hit #9 on the Billboard chart, selling millions of records. Even Weird Al Yankovic made a Pac-Man parody of the Beatles' Taxman. And decades later, The Gorillaz teamed up with Schoolboy Q for a new Pac-Man song celebrating the game's 40th birthday.
I'm a mad Pac-Man.
Arcades were packed, but not everyone could get to one, so companies brought Pac-Man home. Toymaker Tomy made a bright yellow handheld Pac-Man game with an LCD screen. Coleco's tabletop arcade version sold 1.5 million units in 1982, and if that wasn't enough, Pac-Man wristwatches let kids play mini-mazes right on their wrists. 500,000 sold in 1 year. There were board games, sticker sets, scratch-off cards. Everything you could imagine to keep the chase going. Scoring big in Pac-Man became legendary. The perfect score, 3,333,360 points, meant eating every dot, ghost, and fruit across 255 levels without dying once. In 1999, gamer Billy Mitchell became the first to do it on a real arcade machine. Years later, drama hit, disputes, bans, and a Guinness World Records reversal. But by 2020, his record was back, and only a handful of players have ever matched it. The fastest perfect run? 3 hours, 28 minutes, 49 seconds, by David Race from Ohio. That's not just skill, that's endurance. Guinness recognized Pac-Man as the most successful coin-operated game ever, with nearly 300,000 machines installed worldwide. And in 2009, a survey found 94% of Americans could recognize Pac-Man, more than Mario. In 2004, students at New York University created Pac-Manhattan, a live game where players dressed as Pac-Man and ghosts race through city streets using GPS trackers. It became the largest Pac-Man game ever played. Even today, Pac-Man keeps popping up. Lego made a stunning mini arcade set. Pac-Man, Blinky, and Clyde all made of bricks. And 7-Eleven still joins the fun, selling Blinky's Cherry Slurpees and Pinky's Strawberry Cappuccino. On August 21st, 2016, during the 2016 Summer Olympics closing ceremony, a video showcasing Tokyo as host of the 2020 Summer Olympics included a segment showing Pac-Man and the ghosts racing and eating dots on a running track. This demonstrated Pac-Man's status as a Japanese cultural ambassador representing the nation's gaming heritage to a global audience. By 2016, Pac-Man had made over $12 billion worldwide, maybe closer to $14 billion depending upon who's counting. More than 43 million copies sold. Countless ports, sequels, and remakes. What started as a bite out of a pizza turned into one of the most recognizable icons in gaming history. 40 plus years later, Pac-Man's still here. Simple, timeless, and somehow still fun. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you like this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment about what game you would like for us to feature next. See you next time.